Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Please consider subscribing and check out our Patreon for more. Enjoy the video. Albert stumbled out of the crowded house party, the thumping bass fading behind him as he staggered onto the dimly lit street. His vision swam from one too many cheap beers. Raucous laughter spilled from the house. He shuffled alongside his friend Jake, who was snickering, clearly buzzed himself.
Dude, Jake slurred. You know what would be hilarious? If you tried on Susie's dress. She left one in my room from last time she crashed. What? No way, man, I'm not doing that, Albert protested, shaking his head vigorously. The world tilted around him. Come on, don't be lame, it'll be hysterical. No one will know, Jake goaded, shoving Albert's shoulder playfully. Grumbling, Albert relented, allowing Jake to pull him back inside and up the creaky stairs to his bedroom. Jake dug through a pile of laundry before producing a floral sundress. He thrust it into Albert's hands. Unsteady on his feet, Albert shimmied out of his jeans and t-shirt, nearly toppling over. The dress was soft and smelled faintly of lavender laundry detergent as he pulled it over his head. The light fabric fluttered around his thighs. Straightening up, Albert glanced at his reflection in Jake's full-length mirror propped against the wall. His breath caught in his throat. An unfamiliar thrill zinged through him. The dress hugged his slim waist and the skirt swished pleasantly against his bare legs. He had never felt so pretty, delicate, feminine. A flush crept up his neck. Dang, Al, you make a hot chick,
Jake guffawed. Albert barely registered the words, too transfixed by his own image. He spun experimentally, eyes widening as the skirt flared out. A giddy laugh bubbled up his throat. In that moment, something shifted deep inside him, a hidden truth rising to the surface. After a minute, he reluctantly shimmied back out of the dress, but as he pulled on his boring male clothes, a profound sense of wrongness settled over him. The rough denim scratched at his skin. He already missed the whisper-soft caress of the dress. That night, lying in bed, Albert couldn't stop thinking about how right it had felt, how freeing to wear women's clothing. But shame burned in his gut. Men weren't supposed to like dressing up as women. What was wrong with him? He tossed and turned for hours before finally falling into a fitful sleep, plagued by dreams of twirling in diaphanous skirts under judgmental stares. In the harsh light of day, hungover and his head pounding, Albert wrote off the strange longing as a drunken fluke. He buried himself in schoolwork and his part-time job shelving books at the campus library, determinedly ignoring the itch under his skin, the desire to feel soft fabrics on his body again. But the urge grew, a restless tingle in his fingers every time he passed the women's clothing section at the store. He started noticing dresses and skirts everywhere. The flirty sundress the barista wore as she served him coffee, the way his lab partner's skirt swished as she walked to her seat, the lacy edge of a camisole peeking out from under a girl's jacket. Temptation gnawed at him until finally, a month later, he caved. Face burning, heart hammering against his ribs, Albert forced himself to walk into a department store. He made a beeline for the ladies' section, snatching items at random, a couple skirts, a blouse, a dress, before scurrying to the changing rooms, praying no one would notice him. With shaking hands, he locked the dressing room door and stripped off his clothes. The first skirt he tried on, a gray wool pencil skirt, made his skin crawl. It was too restrictive, too office worker. But then he slipped on a gauzy lilac baby doll dress and stared at his reflection, tears pricking his eyes. Butterflies took flight in his stomach. The delicate flutter of the skirt against his smooth legs felt as natural as breathing. He had never felt so wholly himself as he did in that moment, wrapped in femininity. A relieved sob worked its way up his throat as understanding crashed through him. This was who he was meant to be. Not a man in stiff button-downs and heavy boots, but someone soft and graceful and pretty. Someone who could transcend the bonds of gender. After that, Albert began slowly building a secret wardrobe, Silky camisoles, flirty skirts, strappy heels, lace panties, and balconette bras. He spent hours in his bedroom, door locked, reveling in the feel of women's clothing, spinning in front of the mirror, admiring the way certain cuts accentuated the feminine aspects of his slender figure. Any spare money went to thrift shops and clearance racks. He learned to apply mascara and lipstick with a steady hand, to walk without wobbling in 4-inch stilettos. Each feminine garment felt like armor shielding his true self. For months, he kept his cross-dressing completely private, a delicious secret. Changing back into masculine clothes felt more and more like a suffocating mask. He ached to be seen as he really was, but terror stopped his tongue every time he thought about confiding in someone. What if they thought he was a freak? The fear of rejection choked him. But little by little, he grew bolder. He started wearing panties under his jeans, a lacy camisole under his flannel shirt. No one else could tell, but he knew. It made him feel scandalous, brave. Each hidden scrap of femininity was a silent declaration. This is me. It all came to a head on a brisk October evening. Albert was meeting his sister Anna for dinner. Standing in front of his mirror, he smoothed the skirt of the burgundy velvet dress he had decided to wear. His freshly shaved legs looked sleek in shimmery hose. Soft curls brushed his jawline from the wig he had splurged on. Tonight, he would shatter his crystal closet. Tonight, he would show his sister his authentic self and pray she still loved him afterwards. His stomach swooped with nerves, but beneath the anxiety simmered steely determination. He refused to hide anymore, to chafe under the chains of masculinity for a single day longer. He needed to be accepted for who he really was. Drawing in a fortifying breath, he grabbed his clutch purse and stepped out his front door in a pair of kitten heels. The night air kissed his bare arms. At the restaurant, 15 minutes later, Albert spotted Anna already seated at a corner table. He faltered, hand fluttering to his pounding heart. But he forced his feet to keep moving, the heels clicking on the tile floor. Anna glanced up and did a double-take. Her eyes went saucer-wide. Albert stopped beside the table, resisting the urge to bolt. He held his sister's astonished gaze, heart in his throat. "Albert?" Anna sputtered. "Is that you? What are you wearing?"
Albert swallowed thickly. I'm wearing a dress, because this is who I am. I like dressing in women's clothing. It makes me feel like myself." He held his breath, hands fisting in the velvet skirt as he waited for her reaction. Disgust, anger, rejection. He braced himself for the worst. But then Anna leaped to her feet and threw her arms around Albert's neck in a fierce hug. She pulled back, hands on his shoulders, eyes shining with tears. "Oh, Albert," she whispered. "I'm so proud of you for being brave enough to show me this. Thank you for trusting me. You look beautiful." Relief crashed through Albert, so intense it made him dizzy. He laughed wetly, returning his sister's tight embrace. "Thank you," he rasped. "Thank you for accepting me." After that night, there was no going back. With Anna's compassion fueling his courage, Albert began openly cross-dressing everywhere. He ignored the occasional odd look or rude comment. His own comfort and peace mattered more than the small-minded judgment of strangers. He started introducing himself with female pronouns, learned to expertly contour his angular face into softer curves, to cinch his waist with corsets. He grew out his natural hair and dyed it a rich auburn. Jake and his other guy friends drifted away when he showed up to the sports bar in a slinky black cocktail dress. But Albert found he didn't care much. He made new friends who appreciated his blend of masculine and feminine. 2 years after that drunken party dare, Albert twirled on the dance floor in a shimmery blue gown, auburn curls spilling over his shoulders, red lips curved in a contented smile. On his arm was the man he had been seeing for a month now, one who looked at Albert like he had captured starlight in his eyes.
As Albert spun under the strobing lights, his skirt flaring around smooth legs, he felt a bone-deep sense of rightness, of finally coming home to himself after years of trying to wedge his true essence into the narrow confines of masculinity. The beat pulsed through him, bass thrumming in his chest as he lost himself in the music. His dance partner, a handsome man named Liam with warm brown eyes, matched him move for move. Their bodies synchronized in the push and pull of the throng of dancers. Albert tipped his head back, laughing breathlessly as Liam spun him out and reeled him back in, the silky fabric of his dress whispering across his thighs. Liam's hands, large and reassuring, settled on his hips.
"You're absolutely stunning,"
Liam murmured, his lips brushing the shell of Albert's ear. A shiver rippled through Albert, and he beamed, sliding his arms around Liam's neck. "Thank you," he said, sincerity ringing in his voice. "I feel stunning. I feel free." And he did. For the first time in his 23 years, Albert felt fully, euphorically himself. Not a mold of masculinity he had to cram himself into, but a fluid, limitless expression of his innermost identity. The song changed to something slower, moodier, and Albert let himself melt into Liam, swaying in the bubble of intimacy amidst the crowd. He rested his head on Liam's broad shoulder, smiling at the gentle fingers tracing patterns on the small of his back. He thought back to their first meeting a month ago, both reaching for the same silk scarf in a bohemian boutique downtown. The spark of attraction that had flickered between them as their hands brushed. Albert had blushed and stammered, all too aware of how he must look to this gorgeous man, a blend of masculine and feminine, broad shoulders and an angular jaw paired with a delicate lace sundress and glossy lipstick. But instead of the confusion or distaste Albert had come to expect, Liam's eyes had crinkled in a warm smile. "That color would look lovely with your hair," he had told Albert, gesturing to the teal fabric.
"It suits you."
Surprised pleasure had unfurled in Albert's chest, and he ducked his head shyly. "Thank you," he murmured, fingers curling in the scarf.
"I'm Liam."
The man extended a hand, still smiling.
"Albert!"
His palm, work-roughened but gentle, engulfed Albert's slimmer one. They had gotten coffee, the scarf tucked in Albert's purse, and talked for hours about everything and nothing. Conversation flowed effortlessly, attraction simmering under the surface. By the end of that first meeting, Albert was thoroughly smitten, but old fears held his tongue. What would Liam think when he learned Albert was biologically male, that Albert still used male pronouns in addition to female ones sometimes? The what-ifs chased themselves in circles through his mind, but he couldn't bring himself to shatter the magic of their connection with that loaded revelation. 2 more dates followed, a playground of flirtation and deepening feelings. Liam was unfailingly respectful, never pressuring Albert for more than he was willing to give, never questioning his fluid presentation. Still, guilt gnawed at Albert for withholding such a key piece of himself. On their 4th date, a sunset walk along the river, Albert finally found his courage. He came to a stop, turning to face Liam with his heart fluttering hummingbird quick against his ribs. Liam's brow furrowed in concern.
"Everything okay, beautiful?"
Albert swallowed hard, twisting his hands together.
"There's something I need to tell you," he said quietly. "Something important."
Liam stepped closer, taking Albert's fidgeting hands in his own.
"Whatever it is, you can tell me," he assured.
Drawing a fortifying breath, Albert forced himself to meet Liam's eyes. Compassionate, free of judgment. It bolstered him.
"I'm transgender," Albert said in a rush. I was born male, biologically, I mean, but I've always felt like my true self is more feminine. I still use male pronouns sometimes, and I'm not looking to medically transition, but I want to express my gender fluidity. Dressing in women's clothing, makeup, all of it, it's a huge part of who I am. And I really like you, but I understand if this changes things.
The words spilled out of him, 10 years of repression bleeding out. He held his breath, steeling himself for the revulsion, the anger, the disgust he had seen on so many faces since he started openly expressing his femininity. But Liam only squeezed his hands, a gentle smile curving his mouth. "Albert," he said softly. "I know." Albert blinked. You know? But how?" Liam reached up, cupping Albert's jaw tenderly and brushing a thumb over his cheekbone.
"I already knew, honey. It doesn't change anything about how I feel about you. You're a beautiful person, inside and out. I'm so grateful you told me and that you trust me with this part of yourself. I want to know all of you in whatever wonderful form that takes."
Tears burned Albert's eyes, and he released a shuddering exhale, covering Liam's hand with his own.
"You have no idea how much that means to me," he whispered. "I was so afraid you would see me differently, that you wouldn't want me anymore." "Never," Liam vowed, tilting forward until their foreheads touched. "I want you for exactly who you are, Albert. Nothing could change that."
And then, telegraphing his intent, Liam closed the last bit of distance between them and captured Albert's lips in a achingly tender kiss. It felt like a promise, like hope solidifying into bone-deep certainty. They had kissed for a long time on that grassy riverbank, hands tangled in each other's hair and hearts beating in sync, until the sun dipped below the horizon and they broke apart with giddy laughter. After that, the last walls between them crumbled. Albert stopped trying to split himself into palatable pieces and instead let Liam see him in his messy, vibrant entirety. Sometimes in a dress and winged eyeliner, sometimes in jeans and stubble. And Liam loved every version, worshipped every facet and mood like Albert was the most precious gem. Albert learned the plains and valleys of Liam, too, mapped his scars, soothed his own vulnerable places. They fit together, two complicated puzzles finding their match, and with every passing day, Albert fell a little more in love. Now, swaying in Liam's arms under the pulsing lights, their bodies pressed close and feet following the same rhythm, Albert felt that love like a living force inside his chest. It burst out of him, and he drew back just enough to catch Liam's eyes, seeing his own feelings reflected back at him.
"I love you,"
Albert said, raising his voice to be heard over the music. Saying those words to another person for the first time, knowing in his bones that this was a forever kind of love.
"I love you so much."
Liam's eyes widened, lips parting on a soft exhale. Then his whole face transformed with incandescent joy, and he hauled Albert in, kissing him breathless right there on the dance floor.
"I love you too,"
Liam said fiercely when they broke apart. "Albert, you incredible man. I am so ridiculously in love with you." Heart soaring, Albert crushed their mouths together again, not caring that they were making a scene. Let the whole club see. Let the whole world know that he, Albert, had found a once-in-a-lifetime love. Thanks for watching. The rest won't be viewable on YouTube, so check out Patreon if you want more.